Now that we've seen how to add in keyframes and how useful they can be, in this tutorial I'm going to add some more keyframes in onto this one clip. But I'm only doing this because I want to show you how easy it is to edit these keyframes after we've added them. And whilst I'm doing this, I'm going to add a video effect that is very dramatic, simply so that we can see this in much more detail. So I'll come down to the effects panel and open up the video effects folder. The particular effect I want to use is down here in this stylize folder. So I'll open this up and then drag down. I'm looking for the find edges one. There it is. Now you've probably noticed these are in alphabetical order. Ordinarily you should be able to double click on the effect that you want to use and immediately have this applied to your clip. However, it won't work at the moment because I've not got the clip selected, and I suppose that makes sense really, because if you've got multiple clips and none of them are selected and you double clicked on an effect, well, you don't really know which one it's going to apply to, do you? So you have to make sure it's selected if you are going to double click. In this case, because it isn't selected, I'll left click on find edges here and drag, and this time drop it on top of the clip. The end result is the same. This find edges filter is applied. Okay, and there you'll see it up in the program monitor. Quite a dramatic look. If you're trying to make a science fiction film, then this is the ideal filter for you. Let's play it through. I'll hit the play button. Okay, quite dramatic. Very much like a cartoon, or at least a line drawing version of a cartoon. Okay, let's see what we can do with keyframes then. Making sure my clip is selected, I'll come up to the Effect Controls panel, and there you'll see that Find Edges filter is in place as we would expect. By the way, if you want to make it even more dramatic, notice this checkbox here, this invert checkbox. By clicking in there, well, you now see that not only is this a very unusual science fiction looking scene, but now we've made it a nighttime version of this science fiction scene. Okay, now actually I think I'm going to leave it like that, just for our example. Now at the moment my CTI is right at the beginning of the clip, and this will mean of course that this Find Edges filter is applied right across the clip because we've not added in any keyframes as of yet. What we're going to do in a moment is we're going to blend this with the original, in that as soon as I hit this button here, I've added in a keyframe right on the first frame of our clip. And that will mean at this position we aren't blending this with the original version because we're set at 0%. What we're going to do in a moment is we're going to change this to 100%, and that will mean on this first frame we will see the original version because we've blended out this affected version, and then as we progress we'll have this fade away from the original version and morph, shall we say, or transform into this science fiction version. So what we need to do next is place our CTI right at the end of our clip, or rather we don't want it exactly at the end of our clip, because in essence what we are doing is we are at the beginning of the next clip, albeit there isn't one there at the moment. But if I move my CTI right to the end, then what we are doing is we're picking up the first frame of what could be the next clip. What we need is the last frame of our clip, this existing one, or at least a few frames in from it. So by placing my CTI pretty much to the end there, rather than right at the end, what you can do is, if you do place it at the end and you want to bring it in one frame at a time, then clicking on this button will allow you to do it. Okay, so bring it in a couple of frames if you prefer. For our example, here's fine. Therefore now I can click on the Add Keyframe button once more, and there you'll see we've now got these two keyframes. Admittedly, they are both exactly the same despite their distance apart. We've not blended either of these keyframes with the original, or done anything else for that matter. So this very last keyframe, our second one, if we zoom right in on it, then you can see at the moment our blend with the original slider is still set to 0%, which is exactly the same as the first keyframe. I'll move to the first keyframe by clicking on this back button here. As we remember from what I said previously, this will take the CTI to the next keyframe, either forwards or backwards in this case, and as it turns out, the first frame of our clip. By the way, there are a few things that you can do by clicking on this effects here. Dropping down, you'll see that you can go right down to the bottom and drop on Find Edges. But we can't really add any keyframes by doing this method. We can change either parameter, we can invert, or we can blend with the original. Okay, now I'm just pointing that out so you know it's there. Anyway, let's get back up to our effect controls so that we can modify our keyframes. Okay, now with us being on our first keyframe, and it's set to 0% in terms of blending, we could either type in 100% there, so we see fully the original version, i.e. without this effect, or we can reveal here, and use this drag slider. It's up to you. I'm going to use this drag slider, so I'll left click and drag to the right. So now it says 100%. And of course, this means that our first frame, as I've been saying, doesn't take on that effect at all, this find edges effect. However, what you will notice, you'll see this descending ramp. And what this means is, on our first keyframe, we are set to 100%, as it is here, and our last keyframe, the second one, that will move right down to 0%. And we will see as the playback starts, there will be that gradual change, that morphing into the second version, with the find edges effect applied. You can see as I move my CTI across, how this is going to look. Okay, now I'll just go back to the beginning, and we'll watch it through. I'll click the play button. Okay, so you can see the gradual movement between the original and our find edges version at the end. Well, that's all well and good if you're happy with this ramp moving from the beginning to the end in one smooth movement, but maybe you want a couple of seconds at the beginning where it still retains the original view. Well, by placing your CTI here, at the moment we see the blending mode is set to 77%. Well, if I want to make this 100% instead, well, first of all, I'll click on here to add another keyframe, and there you see it added. We've got that diamond there. Incidentally, if we just close this up so that we only see the name of the effect applied, find edges, we now don't see any diamonds, we just see these circles instead. These are simply here to indicate that there is a keyframe. You can't actually adjust these because these aren't the keyframes themselves. These are just indicators that once we reveal our find edges effect, that there is a keyframe here. So as I say, you can't actually move any of these. They are simply there as an indicator. So let's open up once more, and now you'll see that that circle turns into a diamond, which is the actual keyframe itself. So now if I left click on it and I want to adapt it or move it somewhere else, then as you can see, it's that easy. Now I'm going to take it back to where my CTI is. What I could do at this point is simply change where it says 77% into 100%. Perhaps that's the quickest way. But an alternate method is to go to your first keyframe and then right click on it and run down to copy. Then by using this right arrow button to navigate to my second keyframe with it selected there now, I can right click and drop down, not to copy this time, but to paste, so that any keyframe parameter that we picked up from our first keyframe has been copied and applied to our second one. Hence that's why now it says 100%. And you can see if I drag my CTI in between these two keyframes, we now see the original clip without any blending at all. And in fact, if I open this up, you'll see that horizontal straight line in between our first two keyframes at 100%, and it's only at that position, the second keyframe, that we descend with that blending ramp until we morph into the find edges effect at the end. Right, let's have one last look. I'll make sure I'm at the beginning and I'll hit play. Okay, and that's it really. That's all we need to do when we want to edit keyframes.